The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Cox Communications, connecting Virginians to their government. We're pleased to have with us today Delegate Chris Head. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Woody. Thanks for having me.
Well, the 45-day session is going by very quickly. You just finished crossover, did you not?
We did. We just finished crossover. The pace this year, and of course this is only my second short session, but it seems to be a little bit more brisk than the last one I remember, and from what I have gathered from conversation with other members who've been around for a long time, it has been a pretty breakneck pace, but that's not a bad thing. We're pretty efficient.
Absolutely. Now, you have Roanoke in your district. Tell us a little bit about your district, its diversity, the economy, and how things are going back home.
I'd love to. 17th District comprises the eastern half of Roanoke County. I then have 5 precincts in the city of Roanoke and then 1 precinct in Botetourt County and actually a half precinct that I share with Delegate Terry Austin. That precinct in Botetourt is where I actually live, but it's a Roanoke address, so it's all right there as part of Roanoke, and we say that the 17th District is the district that actually covers the entire Roanoke Valley in some way, shape, manner, or form. So I've got the town of Vinton as a part of that as well, and it's just a wonderful mountain town district, and it's a delight to represent the folks from there.
Now, what's your constituency like in terms of diversity?
Well, it probably has it's probably a little less diverse than a lot of other areas of the state, but certainly we have a great cross section, and the diversity is increasing as we have more people moving in for some of the things that we've got going on in Roanoke, like the Virginia Tech Research Institute, the Carilion Research Institute that we have collaboratively with Virginia Tech there in Roanoke, and a lot of new industries that tend to take a look at things, and we get also some spillover from Virginia Tech, which brings in a significant amount of diversity, ethnically, culturally, internationally. So it's a growing population of that, and it's just a very vibrant place.
So besides the economic influence that affiliation with Virginia Tech brings, who are some of the major employers?
Well, Carilion is the #1 employer in the area. We've also have large employment from Advance Auto, we've had Norfolk Southern. Of course, we just had recently a very disappointing announcement from Norfolk Southern that their downtown headquarters building is going to be emptied out, that they are pulling out of Roanoke for that portion of their business, which is about 500 really, really strong white-collar jobs, and that's going to impact the whole area somewhat. At the same time, we've got some opportunities for other industries that are building and emerging again, Advance Auto, I think, is looking at possibly maybe adding some new jobs there. I'm told that the Virginia Employment Commission says that there are enough new jobs available that we should be able to weather the storm of the loss of that without it being too terribly impactful. It will be disruptive, to be sure, but it also gives us some great opportunity. And one of the things that I had some of the real estate developers and bankers tell me recently was that we actually, for A-grade commercial space in the downtown area, have been at a better than 90% capacity, and that there have been some companies that wanted to come to Roanoke but wouldn't because they couldn't find sufficient space, or if they could find space it would be separated out over 2 different buildings, or they couldn't have floors together on the same building. And now we've got a really marketable property, a marvelous building down there that I think gives us an opportunity to attract somebody to replace that, and hopefully we can turn lemons into lemonade for the Roanoke Valley economically.
Well, that's a great story, and it actually answers my next question, because you have not been as adversely affected as the rest of the state has by sequestration and the budget cuts to to the Department of Defense?
No, those things haven't affected us very much. Some to a degree, but I mean, it's very, very minor impact out in our area. But we were affected by other things. The economic development of the area has remained relatively stable over the years. But we're now trying to help bolster things, and we're in a very unique position in Roanoke as sort of the gateway to Southwest Virginia. A lot of people in Virginia think of Roanoke as being Southwest, but you get to Roanoke and you've still got 150 miles to go on I-81 to get just to Bristol, and from there, if you want to go on due west and not leave the state there, you've got another 100 miles you can go. So there's a lot of Virginia still very much to the west. The coal fields out there have experienced so much loss, and we're in a position that if we leverage things appropriately to try to get some revitalization going in those areas, we can be a gateway corridor for helping bring that along as well, and I think we've got to look at doing that.
Now, what about colleges and universities in the valley?
Of course, we also have, Virginia Tech is very, very close by, but we have Roanoke College, we have Hollins University, we also have Virginia Western Community College, and that is offering some really remarkable programs of study, some expansion from our higher ed center. I sit on the board of the Roanoke Higher Ed Center, and we've got a variety of colleges and universities from around the Commonwealth and even around the nation that offer programs there for advanced courses of study, and that allows people to do that in a non-traditional environment, but obtain, again, a variety of different certifications and even full degree programs through that. So it's really vibrant from that standpoint. And we also have the medical school from Virginia Tech Carillion Med School that is there, that is now up and fully operational and doing great things, as well as the Jefferson College of Health Sciences.
And understand that research institute affiliated with the College of Medicine is bringing some international recognition because they're studying the brain.
The brain research that's going on at the Virginia Tech Carillion Research Institute is absolutely astounding. Mike Friedlander is the executive director there, and having had a chance to work with him and talk with him and see some of what they've got going on, is really pretty remarkable, and the pioneering of interacting with other locations around the globe with interconnected brain scan units so that you can be watching people interact and sharing all of that data real time from across the globe for various studies, and it puts Roanoke really on the map. One of the things that we have a hard time with, we haven't done as good a job over the years traditionally as we're trying to do now to promote the Roanoke Valley and bring people in and let them come and experience the vibrancy that we have. I'm told that the biggest barrier to bringing in new researchers at the Research Institute and at Virginia Tech and the other companies even is people hear Roanoke and they think that it's some sleepy little mountain town in the middle of nowhere. If we can ever get them to come to Roanoke to visit, we've got them, because there's not a finer place to live anywhere.
Now, you're a businessman, but you bring a real passion with working with geriatrics, so to speak.
I do.
And there's a particular program that I'm sure your constituents are very proud of. Talk to us about the Christmas program that you promote locally.
Be a Santa to a Senior. My wife and I own Home Instead Senior Care, and that's a national company we have franchise offices of. And on a national basis, Home Instead sponsors this program. We have taken it locally, and my wife really runs that program at Christmas, and it is a remarkable thing. We gather names of seniors from around the area, and we get those names from social services organizations, from the area agencies on aging, and that sort of organization to screen the people that are going to be either very needy or very lonely at Christmas time that are senior adults. It's not for children, this is just for seniors, and in a lot of cases these seniors, if they don't have contact through this program or something like it, they will have absolutely no social involvement during Christmas, will receive nothing, they are forgotten. In some cases, they are just lonely and are not financially needy, but in a lot of cases they also have some tremendous financial need. And in many cases you've got people that have outlived their children. It's a very, very sad and lonely time. And so what we do is it runs like an angel tree program where we take those names and put them out into the community on trees that people can pick an ornament up off of to then fulfill that gift and take it out. And this year we were able, across the areas that we serve, we delivered packages to, I believe, somewhere around 2,400 senior adults over about a 7-county area. It cannot be done by our staff alone, by any stretch of the imagination. There are hundreds of volunteers that come out and not only buy the gifts, but then come back in and help wrap the gifts and then help deliver the gifts and get them out there in a fairly compressed time frame. But it's grown significantly over the years, and it's very, very heartwarming. And the gift requests that people come in with are from you'll have people that are asking for a pair of socks or for a lap blanket or for, in some cases, pet food, dog food, because the only companion that they have is their dog, but they can't afford to buy their meds and buy dog food. So we help them along with that. Almost every year there is a request that comes through for someone that needs some assistance with heating oil. We've had requests for firewood. And the cases that come through where the scope of the gift is really beyond what we would run through the program, we're able then to channel those requests back in, working with social services to some of the other organizations in the community to try to get some help for these folks.
Well, great. Congratulations. And just to build on the discussion around geriatrics, you and I had talked a little bit before we went on camera about this age wave. That is a silent wave that many people aren't familiar with. Talk to us about what that all means.
Well, Woody, I'll give you a couple of statistics that really are sort of mind-blowing that people don't think about. One is from Ken Dykewald, who is a gerontologist who he really coined the phrase age wave.
There's a book.
That was his book.
Yes.
But he did this back in the late 80s. He started seeing this coming a long time ago. Only just now are people beginning to pay attention with the fact that the baby boomer generation is going to all get old at the same time, and we're beginning to do that. I'm a trailing edge baby boomer, but am part of that cohort. He gives the statistics saying that if you take every human being in the history of the human race, from Adam to now, that has ever lived to be 65 years of age, 2/3 of them are alive right this minute.
Right now.
Right now. And that's because we're experiencing a phenomenon that is absolutely unique in human history. We've never done this before, and that is that we are aging. We've always had old people. There have always been people that lived to be very, very old, but the majority of people died. And that's not happening until we get older. Your life expectancy now at birth is north of 80. And if you live to be 65 years old, your life expectancy right now is to be 85, 86 years old, something like that. I think you've got now, it's either 20 or 21 years that I've seen in the last stats that I've seen for the life expectancy if you make it to 65. The problem with that is this. We're right now, we're having about 11,000 people a day turn 65 in this country. 11,000 people a day are turning 65. And that is going to continue right on up through about 2030. That's a staggering number. All right, if you're going to live to be 85, if you make it to 65, that means that we are now only about 13 years away, because this trend started a couple of years ago. We're about 13 years away from 11,000 people a day turning 80. Well, the Alzheimer's Association will tell you that at age 80, 50% of people develop Alzheimer's or some related dementia. So we are about 13 years away from having 5,000 new Alzheimer's patients every day.
That's a catastrophe.
It's a catastrophe. And the other thing is that if you look at the demographics of the nation as a whole, our K through 12 population from where we are right now, projected out through about 2030, really is going to remain relatively flat. But our senior population is going to spike and skyrocket.
So that has an impact on Social Security, for example.
Well, it also is going to have an impact on absolutely every element of the economy and every business. And one of the things that I'm hoping to be able to do over the time here in the General Assembly, and it's what I do day to day and in the public policy work that I do, is trying to help everybody, both in the public sector and in the business community, prepare for the age wave. Because if we prepare for it, I think we'll survive it. I use the analogy that that there's a, if you remember the Bible story of Joseph when he was sold into slavery in Egypt in Genesis, and he interpreted Pharaoh's dream, and the dream was the 7 fat cows and then the 7 skinny cows and
Right.
so on. And he said there was going to be 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of
Yes.
famine. And the instruction was, we need to prepare right now for that famine, and we'll get through it. And what's woven into the story is not only did they prepare and not only did they survive, but by doing that, they also plundered the wealth of the nations around them. They had food when nobody else did. I really do believe strongly that there's a very similar correlation going on here. I think that if we will hurry and get things ready for what's coming, which is the single most predictable crisis that has ever happened in human history. This is coming. But if we'll get ready for it now, when it comes, not only will we get through it, but we'll prosper. And that's going to take a lot of people working together. But just getting people aware that, yeah, this is really coming and this is really important is something I think I've got to spend a lot of time doing to get people ginned up about this.
Yeah, because there are a lot of social implications there, no question about it, and the potential for a lot of intergenerational conflict.
Well, there is, because you're going to end up, if we're not real careful, with the voting base being all senior adults and outnumbering the voters that are paying for everything that are not the retirees. And if we continue to go down that road, we could have some pretty profound conflict with that.
Exactly.
But again, we can make it be a good thing if we start working all together.
Well, speaking of working together, I know you work together with a coalition of legislators this session, both Democrats and Republicans, to fashion a bill dealing with crowdfunding.
We did. It ended up being Delegate Scott Taylor's bill. Interestingly enough, Scott Taylor, Glenn Davis, and I all came this year with almost the same bill, but we did it independently of each other. And the sourcing of it came from different areas, which lets you know this is a real need. The other thing that I'm very passionate about is developing business and keeping the economy vibrant. And I chair the Business Development Caucus that I helped co-found several years ago. When we've done roundtable meetings around the Commonwealth, one of the things that we heard this year out of the roundtables consistently was a need for capital. Access to capital for small business was really a problem. With the Dodd-Frank laws that have come out of Washington really being into full effect now, it is becoming increasingly difficult for small businesses that don't maybe have all of the capital that they need to come up with all the collateral that they need to come up with the capital that they need for their businesses. And independent investment is something that used to be the way most businesses got off the ground. But setting it up as a security type product where people could know what the business was, see it's a good idea, and they may not necessarily be a relative or a close friend. You can always do that. But if you wanted to cast the net a little wider than that, then you're limited by regulations from the Securities and Exchange Commission unless you fall down under certain thresholds. And so there was this niche area where intrastate investment, only the investors in Virginia for a Virginia business, would be able to participate. But we needed to get some legislation on the books, work together with the State Corporation Commission, and we all worked together to roll the bill into Scott's very fine bill, and it's gotten great support, and we've got a lot of excitement by that and support from the Chamber of Commerce, National Federation of Independent Businesses. It's a really exciting prospect. I think it'll help businesses along significantly.
So as an entrepreneur, a new entrepreneur, if I want to raise capital, what will this bill allow me to do that I would not otherwise be able to do?
You'd be able to go out and solicit contributions, solicit investment of up to $10,000 per person for non-accredited investors, which that's something that you haven't been able to do before, and make that something that's a legitimate investment that there's going to be a return on. But it mirrors the crowdfunding model from websites like Kickstarter, which funds a startup. But the way that works is if you like the idea, they'll say, if you send me $100 and if we get this thing off the ground, then you're going to get a T-shirt and one of the first products off the line. There's not really an investment. It's just a neat idea for bragging rights. Well, instead of being $100, we're looking more in terms of the $5,000 to $10,000 investment to really help businesses raise up to $1 million and be able to really do something nice, but then be able to have a measured return on that as a security type investment. So opens up some new opportunities for us.
Great. Now, you also have a constitutional amendment, and I know that that's a pretty complex process to begin with, but the content of your amendment is also something that needs explanation.
Well, it does. First of all, the content of the amendment, and it's one that has passed out of the House twice before. We're hopeful we can get it through the Senate this time. The amendment says that the General Assembly would have the authority, with a majority vote of each House, to suspend all or any part of a regulation. And the reason that that's important is that all regulations are derive their underlying authority from the laws that are passed, and that's what we do, is pass the laws. Regulations, while they are not law, have the same weight and force as law and are looked on by the courts as being law unless they are out of phase with the underlying enabling legislation. From time to time, regs get promulgated out that get a little bit out of phase, and it causes harm for the constituents that we're trying to protect, and we really have no way to rein those back in short of passing new legislation and going through a long, protracted process to ratchet something back. It really could take several years to get that done. This would allow us to, if there's something that's egregious, roll it back. A more common situation is that we pass a law, and for whatever reason, and there are a variety of them, and I tend to think that they're invalid, but there are a variety of reasons that are given anyway. Some of these regulatory agencies never act on the legislation that we've passed. In the first case that I came aware of this was when I opened my own business. The regulations for health care were horrific. They were, for home care, it was absolutely horrible. And then I went back and looked at the underlying law and realized that the General Assembly had already created the mechanism to do exactly what needed to be done, and that the Department of Health at the time had not gotten ever around to promulgating new regulations. Woody, would you have any guess how long they had sat on this?
I have no idea. Tell me.
13 years.
13 years.
And they'd never gotten around to doing what the law said that they had to do. So this would again give us a tool to go in and say, all right, enough of that. We're turning this off and this off and this off until and perhaps that will kick things along a little bit better. My anticipation would be, if we can get this thing passed, it probably would rarely, if ever, be used. But sometimes just being able to know that we have the stick in the hand is enough to be able to help nudge things into the right direction.
Now, what about the process?
The process is very, very complex. If you're going to change the Constitution, it takes a long time. It's very, very difficult, and it should be, because the Constitution is the framework that everything rests on. And to change the Virginia Constitution, we have to have a resolution that is passed by a majority of the members of each House. So even if you've got a vote that came out as 48 to 45, wouldn't be enough out of the House, because we have to have 51 in the House and 21 in the Senate to be able to pass that resolution. And it has to be exactly the same resolution when it passes out. Then after that's done, you have to have an election of both houses. And then you have to have, well actually, let's take that back, both houses. Senate doesn't have to change. You just have to have had an election so that the membership could change. And then in the very next session after the election, you have to have another vote that has a majority of the members of each House vote in favor of it. And it has to be identical verbiage. You cannot make one alteration or the whole thing's off. And then once that's done, it goes out to the voters, and you have to have a majority of the voters in the general election in November vote in favor of the amendment. So it's a very complex and long process to get a constitutional amendment through, as it should be. But it gives everybody input, and it really is ultimately up to the people to decide.
So talk to us about your committee assignments this session.
I serve on the Militia, Police, and Public Safety Committee, and we handle anything having to do with public safety, any of the police issues, and also all of the gun bills come to us. I also serve on the Finance Committee, so anything having to do with generating revenue comes to that committee. And I then serve also on Health, Welfare, and Institutions. So that covers all the health care regulations, anything having to do with hospitals, and anything having to do with health and welfare.
Talk a little bit about K through 12. because I believe this year's budget hopes to hold K through 12 harmless,
That is
at
the
least at
intent.
2009 levels, as I understand it.
That is the case.
And also hold harmless to the extent possible the cost of higher education. Talk to us about those issues.
Well, the higher education, one of the things, and I actually co-patroned the bill with Delegate Nick Rush, that I'm very excited about is the idea of flat fee college degrees. There's a lot of nuance in that, but college degrees, a lot of times you end up paying for a lot of things that you may not necessarily need to take advantage of on a college campus. Different fees, different student fees, activities fees, and if you're a relatively non-traditional student that needs to get this degree in a very, very quick time frame and go out and get to work, and we want to enable that, this would give you a flat fee degree. It might require you to go at some non-traditional times, maybe require you to go some in the summers and utilize the resources that we have there at times when they are underutilized, so that it really is a cost savings for the institutions as well. But get all the way through, and then you've got a gun to your head. If you drop out, or if you don't graduate, if you then don't go get employed and get out there and do what you need to do on your end, then the bill goes back up. But if we can get you out there and get you moving and through and employed, then you can get the degree for a lower cost, and it's a flat fee. You know what it's going to be going in, so that you're not surprised with increases as you're running along. I think it's a great bill, a great opportunity, and a great idea, and I was really pleased to be able to co-patron that with Delegate Rush.
I believe there's some other legislation dealing with the standards of learning. I assume you've heard about the concerns that parents, students, and teachers in your district have about those tests, how many are administered, what results from those tests. Talk to us about the changes that have been made and are likely to be made in the future.
Well, I think you're going to see some continued revision on standards of learning as we're trying to make it a little bit stronger. Interestingly enough, I had a bill that had it last year as well, and it failed. It was headed for disaster this year, and then we were able to work together with the Department of Education to modify it and eliminate the fiscal impact on it, to at least have a starting point so we could get it on through and get started. But it was brought to me at the request of Roanoke City Schools, which Roanoke City Schools is a very urban school district. The majority of Roanoke City is a different district from mine, but the issues that we were running into in an urban district with a significant amount of ethnic diversity, with a significant amount of poverty, and with a lot of languages being spoken in that school system. When there's a shift in the standards of learning that's a rather abrupt shift, it can have a real negative impact on the scores. The case that was brought up that sort of triggered this was when the writing SOL was moved from being a pencil and paper test to being a computer-based test. A lot of the students in my district were able to handle that. Urban districts, not so much, and we need to let them know that that change is coming, and that's what my bill chose to try to do, is give them some advance warning.
Great. Well, thanks for being with us, Delegate Chris Head. Good to see you.
Thank you, Woody.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Cox Communications, connecting Virginians to their government. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.
Mm-hmm.